Hello everyone, today I am so excited to be able to bring to you some footage of Distant Worlds 2. So I'm going to start this battle playing in the background, but we'll quickly jump over to the game setup. Before I do that, I just want to mention a few things. This is not me playing the games, this is all footage that was provided by Slitherine, and it's all the same footage that was shown on the Slitherine gameplay reveal of Distant Worlds 2. They did a stream. At the time of this recording, it was just a few days ago, and then they provided to some of the press people like myself the raw video so we can come back and do our own commentary on it, dissect it frame by frame. If you want a very deep dive into this, you can look at Das Tactics channel. I know that he's already done like multiple 30-minute videos on this, so really, truly deep dive. I'm going to try to present more of the comparisons with Distant Worlds 1, so that's what I plan to do here. You can see some of the ship design stuff here, but I'm going to pause this and let's jump over to the Galaxy setup map. So this is the first video I want to show you, is just how are things going to be getting into this. And this reminds me a lot of actually my first video tutorial on Distant Worlds, which was explaining how to do this, how to set up your map. A lot of these things are very much the same. You have your galaxy shapes, you have your stars, you have your nebula density. Now this is a little bit different as far as I can tell from what Eric Rudens was saying. And then you have your galaxy size. Now basically all of these are the same except for I think nebulas have been tweaked to play a bigger role. They existed in Distant Worlds 1, but from what I heard on the stream, they're going to be a bigger impact. So this should create, I guess, more of a strategic play going through choke points or something like this. Now let's do a quick comparison. Distant Worlds 1, we had all the same stuff except for the nebula density. The only thing we didn't have that in Distant Worlds 2 that we had in Distant Worlds 1 was the ability to regenerate resources. I mean, to choose whether you wanted to do this or not, or regenerate runes, all these different things. So that didn't exist there. Okay, so I'll move on to the next one. Start a new game, Galaxy settings. We had expansion, aggression, difficulty, and then research speed. So while that's playing, I can show you that expansion, aggression, difficulty, these are all the same as in Distant Worlds 1. The difference, and you can see him hovering over here, the difference is that research visibility and research pathing is a new concept in Distant Worlds 2. They've allowed now you to walk randomly down the research tree, and I don't know how this is going to work out because obviously you shouldn't be able to get a better weapon before a worse one. So we'll see. Maybe there's like limits on you can't always get missiles. Sometimes only lasers are available to you, or vice versa. Now these are the same as what was in Distant Worlds 1, except for this option to scale as player nearest victory, which is a bad option in my opinion. Anyway, once you get near victory, you just want to get it done because these games are going for so long anyway. And research cost is also there. So we'll move on to the next one. Okay, good. Start new game, threats. This is exactly the same as what it was before. Space creatures, pirate strength, pirate proximity, and do they respawn if they're destroyed? Yeah, so the exact same 5 options. Looking good. Move on. Start game conditions. So let me move to my next. It's the same. Colony prevalence, independent alien life, colony influence range, and colony colonization range. So all same, you can see 4 options versus 4 options. Move on to the character screen. Now, this is one with a little bit of controversy. I would say it's the first notable extreme difference, I would say, even between Distant Worlds and Distant Worlds 2. We'll just say 1 and 2. There's only 7 playable nations, or races I should say, in Distant Worlds 2 at game launch. Now, I don't remember how many there were at a game launch of Distant Worlds 1 when it first was released, but as of Distant Worlds Universe, there was something like 20 of them. There was a lot of different humans, a lot of different lizards, all these different ones. One thing to note as well, I'm just going to mention this, the different races have different troop qualities, like different combat strengths. So the Actarians had combat strengths of 90 and 90. The Mortallans had combat strengths of 140, 140 for attack and defense, higher being better. And I think it was the humans had 120, 120. So this is, I'm already loving the min-max opportunities, the way the races are set up, where there's some are getting bonuses to research, some to chip maintenance, all those things. So go ahead and move on to the next one. Empire government, this is, I pull up my thing, it's pretty much the same as before as well. Yeah, so you have your name, the flag, and the home system size, tech level, and corruption will be in the next one. This is mostly about establishing the government. I don't have the game up, but you would normally be able to click right there into the random spot, and you'd have the same thing. Now, one thing I noticed, Das pointed this out as well, is when you pick a new government, it doesn't show all the bonuses available to all the governments. It only shows the ones that are changing. So once you get very familiar with the game, this will be fine. It'll be no problem at all. But until then, you may not even know the benefits that you're missing out on until you memorize them all. Okay, well, anyways, that's just a brief comment. Moving on, start a new game. So this is the home system expansion, tech level, and starting location, which I just talked about. We'll have an option to do this. And I think this is really cool, by the way. The starting location is, I think, one of the great concepts in Distant Worlds 1. It was a lot of fun to be able to choose where you wanted to be. You can also set up AI nations, or at least in the next screen, other empires. You can set up where they are to make sure that you can position your kind of like nemesis or whatever very far away from you, or if you want a really exciting game, maybe right next to you. Anyways, that also existed. Pause this real fast. That also existed in Distant Worlds 1. There it is, same kind of thing. Okay, moving on, game conditions. So this is not a big deal. This is the same change. I mean, the main difference we're going to see here is that some of the elements that are in Distant Worlds universe are no longer there. That's to be expected. They don't have like the Shaq Turi storyline. They don't have some of the deeper options that came with expansions. Now we're going to jump back to the combat video, but I should mention you can skip around to whatever part of the video you want on the bottom. We're going to do ship design next, which is actually the first part that we see in this combat video. So the cursor, in-game cursor is highlighting over the different types. We see frigates, destroyers, and cruisers. These were the top three. I think battleships is the only thing they're missing. And then you're going to start clicking on and actually looking at different ships. So what are we going to look at first? This is a cruiser for the Actarians. Now this, I'm going to pause here. This is very similar, I would say, to the ship design that was in Distant Worlds 1. You have all the different components that you can choose from. You have the actual components where you can put stuff. Now, what I think the difference is here is there's actual limits. It sounds like there's hard points that can only be designated for example, weapons or something else. Whereas in Distant Worlds 1, if I'm not mistaken, you had complete freedom. I mean, there's things you needed on your ship. You needed X number of life control, all these different things to make the ship functional. But and we also see on the right-hand side, they had these stats in Distant Worlds 1 as well. They kind of give you an idea of how much your energy is, so you can put on enough engines, what the hyperdrive strength would be, stuff like that. And it's been a long time. Yeah, we can see it on the bottom here, speed versus energy. So those different energy outputs, you know how many energy generators to put on, so you can keep up with a certain rate of fire and shields and all this. That kind of balancing of ship design is wonderful, and I'm glad to see that they haven't gone away from that. So one of the bigger changes from Distant Worlds 1, obviously, the game is 3D. I mean, you probably already noticed this, but yeah, I guess it's worth pointing out that the game is now fully in 3D. You can spin these models around any way you want. Now we're looking at the Mortalan ship. The first one was Actarian. Now we're looking at a Mortalan. What is this? A cruiser. Yeah, so cruisers on both sides. And I think at some point they were pointing out that the Actarians have more ranged weapons, more point defense, more fighter and bomber focus, whereas the Mortalans have more of a railgun focus, their torpedo focus, torpedoes. And I also saw there was a Kaldos. I'm noticing a lot of the same technologies, so which I don't mind at all. In fact, Distant Worlds has one of my favorite tech trees of all time. And now we're going to get into the battle itself, so let's jump over to the combat section of this. Alright, now here we go, and strap yourself in, because this is going to be a beautiful battle. So the Actarians are immediately confronting a Mortalan ship which jumped behind them. You can do little micro jumps like this in battle, and the AI will do it. They were doing this in Distant Worlds 1 as well. The thing is, I think your engines, your hyperdrive engines, have a cooldown period, so you can't just jump again right away. It's kind of a very cool tactical tool at your disposal. And the AI does use it as well. The yellow beams we see going out, I think that those are the point defense, trying to shoot down incoming enemy, probably torpedoes. Now the ships are starting to brawl here. We do see some of the fighters. I think I mentioned this, that the Actarians are supposed to be more fighter and bomber heavy. Although, I don't really, that's what I think I heard on the stream, but I don't really see fruit of it here, or proof. It looks like more like actually the Mortalans have all the smaller craft. I do have the volume cranked way up, probably a little too far up. Let's go down to something a little more reasonable. Okay. Yeah, they're really They're really brawling here. And look how beautiful this game is. To me, this rivals the graphics of, I mean, like Homeworld. I can imagine Homeworld, even like the remastered version. Actually, besides it being beautiful, I can actually imagine mods for these games. I can't wait for this to come out, and it looks a lot like Babylon 5 to me. Can't wait for people to mod in Babylon 5 ships. Okay, and also Star Trek, Star Wars, I mean, all these things. It just seems like this is going to be a beautiful game. So there's the rear Mortalon ship that jumped to try to flank, being chased down. You will see, I didn't point this out in the ship design, but you will see that hardpoints, weapon hardpoints, do have a firing arc. So this Mortalon ship is not firing behind it, because it doesn't have any weapons, or it might be firing a couple things, but not much, because of firing arc issues. So controlling firing arcs will be a challenge. You can see the big cruiser there taking a bunch of torpedoes on that little one. Yeah, they're firing, and if we were manually controlling this, I think that we might be doing a better job. I'm guessing the Actarians are better at range. The Mortalons usually are kind of brutal up close. If I'm not mistaken, that's the Mortalon special weapon. They used to have in Distant Worlds 1 a special something torpedo. I think it was, I want to say Shakturi torpedo, but it wasn't quite like that. And it was extremely powerful. And you will see that some of the ordnance is going to miss. That's true to the game. You know, the further away, I think range has something to do with it. Range is modeled. See a ship going down there. Fight is starting to thin out. And as ships take damage, okay, so on the bottom left, yeah, this is actually important to see. We'll focus on this eventually. I think they'll show it, yeah, a little bit better here. So just pause and let the VLC thing go away. You can see that on the bottom, so right here, on the outside you have your shields. This is armor, presumably. I don't see it, but presumably it's armor. And then the inside is your hull percentage. Now, hull percentage is not just pure, it's not like a hit point bar. I mean, it is to a degree, but really what it is the sum of all the hit points of your various components, as far as I know. So how you lose in this is if all your components are destroyed. But even like if your ship's at 90%, if the 10% that's missing happens to be your hyperdrive, you're totally boned in one of these fights. You know, if you're a big ship and you lose your hyperdrive, now it's kind of like Aurora 4X for those of you who are familiar with that. There's a random roll of dice. I mean, many games have done stuff like this. There's a random roll of the dice to see which component gets hit. But you can see that this one has 3 engines, 3 weapons, I should say, 2 defense things. One of them is damaged, one of them is destroyed. So, you know, not many are operational. Anyway, it's cool. We'll be able to see all this in battle. And we have more combat coming in. So it looks like they are just focusing. To me, it just looks like the same 2 weapons. The Mortalons firing their torpedoes and railguns, and the Actarians using their point defense lasers. And what else are they using? They're using like some kind of, I don't know if it's a missile or some kind of blaster. Some heavier duty, slow moving projectile that's kind of looks like a torpedo as well, actually. I'm not sure what it is. We could have seen it back in the ship design thing if I was paying better attention. So, just watching it happen now. Oh, there's a little stutter there. Torpedoes hitting, yeah, and the Actarians are definitely losing. But beautiful battle. Well, you also do see there's some range indicators. To me, it's very hard. I hope that this will be, maybe you can put like a gray dotted line or something. Although that would kind of ruin the beautiful feel of the of the battle. Maybe it could be an option to include or not, something like that, because a little hard to see. Now, just in case you aren't aware, Distant Worlds combat all takes place on a 2D plane. There's no 3D modeled in this. So from that perspective, oh, we actually see, oh yeah, there's one of the people jumped out but didn't get very far. There are hyperspace inhibitors, things like that. But sometimes you'll just do a quick jump to get away from the combat, and then somebody else will jump after you, which is really interesting. I haven't pointed out, but some of these, especially the Actarian ships, are going to say on them in the bottom here, like this is attack, whatever, but some of them are going to see, or you're going to see escape. Just get out of here. And you'll see it on their little pop-up as well. Move to, attack. Oh, well, that one's gone. Like this bottom one over here, I imagine it's trying to escape. It looks very heavily damaged. You can see that they do model damage to ships. You can see more and more of see through more and more of the whole planing. And notice he's attacking the one in front of him, not the one behind him, because presumably firing arcs. So it does show you that there will be room for micromanagement for people like me who like to do that. I love to command my fleets, and one of the things you can do, and this is also cool, you can see that the firing arc is 90 degrees. I think it's a whole 180 arc for the ones on the front. So he was firing to the left and then firing to the right. All those were fitting into his arc. And that's going to conclude the combat. So let's go to just basic gameplay. Here we're jumping into a pre-warp start, and it's going to take us from the very start of this game until the player here encounters pirates. The opening start of the game, there's this usual style of play. I mean, they're going to start by looking at their governor here, their leader, to see what kind of traits, bonuses he's given. The normal cycle of things. Okay, now zoom out. This is one of the things I love about the map. You can zoom all the way out and then zoom all the way back in. Very organic. I mean, and again, you can move your ships, unless they've changed it, anywhere in the space that you see. It's not like you're fixed to systems. You can actually move them anywhere, and that's always been something very unique to Distant Worlds. One thing that I love. I mean, you can actually hide an ambush of ships in the middle of nowhere in space if you want. On the left side, we're going to be going through a lot of the information panels. Right now, we're looking at the Empire Overview, as I call it. I don't even know what this is. This actual tab is called, but we can see the label is Actarian Technocracy, so that's our empire. They're going through right now a lot of the automation things. Left to right on the top. If I just pause real fast while they're doing that, while they're doing the automation, we'll just go through it, because the automation thing is not something I'll set. It just shows you all the different options you have available. Quite a number, but I'll probably play full manual. So you have Empire Summary, you have Diplomacy, Colonies, Exploration, Resources, Ship Construction, Research, Military, and Civilian. I really like the way they've streamlined that. I mean, in my head, at least in theory, I can view what's in each one of those categories, and I can see how they've merged some things, and I think it looks good. Okay, in Diplomacy and Colonies, we have they're going to cover something here, population policy. So that's kind of a new thing. I think it's down here. Yeah, he'll be clicking on it in a moment. Population policy. So that might be a different way of emphasizing either development or taxes or something. There, we just saw it there for a moment. And now they're also going to cover down here at the bottom, colony automation policy. We'll click on it in a moment. So you should be able to automate your different colonies. When you get bigger, if you don't want to micromanage everything, this seems like a pretty natural thing to start setting some of your colonies. You can see taxes, resources, military. So that all is looking really good. Now we're going to go to exploration. Next. Not much to show over there. Anyway, so while they're covering this, exploration is one of the things in the opening cycle. The way I play the game, the very first thing I start is by choosing my research. They have 0% up here. I guess they haven't unpaused yet. You can see it's paused. Now they're going through the resources. I just want to mention that there are new resources. I haven't seen, maybe a third of these. Like Casey and Crystal. Aculon was in the previous one. So it looks like they've introduced new ones. They probably refit all the roles. I mean, there's no carbon fiber anymore. I think I saw carbonite. So probably there's different roles for ship construction, stuff like that. I think there's still this usual breakdown between strategic resources that you need to build things like your spaceports, your ships. The different lasers will require some resources, whereas missiles will require another. And luxury goods, which generally just help your colonies. And there you see military and civilian. Now, we should be getting into the research screen next, but the normal loop I have is choose your research, choose your tax rate or your home planet. This is for the pre-warp start, and let's not be crazy. Of course, we're going to be doing a pre-warp start. Then you usually get to a construction of a spaceport. Then once you have a spaceport, you're building your exploration ships. You want to start exploring the system. You can see that they actually have constructed the starship. So I think that you can actually build from the planet itself now, and it's supposed to be just much less efficient. And that makes sense. I mean, that's kind of the way Earth is. If we were to have a spaceport that could build ships, it would be much more efficient. You wouldn't have to launch them through the atmosphere. Anyway, I think we'll begin to research next. But the other thing you would be doing after exploration, is once you start learning the different resource on the different planets around you, or the asteroids, you'd start building mining stations. And then last is pirates, which is going to close out the gameplay loop here. Okay, so this is the research screen. One huge thing I've noticed, I don't know if Das picked up on this or not, I actually haven't heard him mention this, but research used to be divided into 3 categories. I don't remember what exactly they were. It was like industry, military, and physics or something like that. But now I only see one research category in general. So you actually would research from each one of those individually. And you would actually put research stations that prioritize, that were like built specifically for, let's say, physics, or let's say industry, or whatever it was. And then those research points would benefit like only that category. Now, I think they've simplified it to only be one research category. And that'll be really interesting to see how that plays out, because I kind of enjoyed having the 3 different categories, but we can see up at the top, there's only one. Now, ship design, going back into ship design. So I want to confirm that what I mentioned on the comment video. Since that one, I've done a lot of looking back on the Distant Worlds thing. Yeah, almost all of this is the same. The one thing which is new here is the rating system. I don't remember. So they did have an attack strength, but this is kind of nice. Speed and maneuvering. I don't remember that being there. Maybe these were there. I only remember the attack strength being there. But you can see on the top there was a size 351 out of 400. So there is, it looks like the ship design is very similar. We have the sensors, which is very similar as well. And the energy bonuses that we saw on the right for a while, those were exactly what I thought, that you do have to balance the cost of firing your weapons versus, yeah, here it is. You have to balance what's your energy collection rate, which you can increase through various ways. Your engines usually provide something. And then fuel cells just increases your capacity. Fuel cells increase your fuel, but there's energy cells, something like that increase it's like a capacitor, which increases your energy storage amount, so that even if you're energy negative for a short time, you can withstand that dip into your energy reserves. Okay, so ship design. Next, they're going to be talking about building suggestions and visor. And probably at this point, I think we'll just pause this video real fast, and I'm going to cut over to a sped up version of the video for the rest of this as I just talk over it. Okay, so we're going to move on here now, and the video is going at 2x speed, but I'll just talk over it. Very soon we're going to see a spy pop up, so there's definitely espionage, counter-espionage. Normally my thing is counter-espionage. In a little bit we'll also see a scientist pop up, so the character system seems to be more or less the same as it was in Distant Worlds 1. I want to mention, you can take a look at the income over here. It seems like there's big jumps in it at the end of every month. You can see on the right. Didn't change that much in this one, but I was looking at the income and trying to figure out what this second number meant. Is it daily income? But something doesn't match up here, so I'm not really sure what's going on with the income. This is total Empire population, which, since there's only one planet, probably just means the population of this planet. Yep, looks exactly correct. And that's your research progress. So what else is going on with this game that I want to talk about? First of all, we had the scientists already pop up. So the income doesn't make sense. Right now, the player is pushing towards hyperspace. It used to be that you would have to discover hyperspace at one of the ruins in your local system, but I think now it's a little bit different. Or maybe it's always been this way, but I thought that you had to discover it at one of your ruins. And I think that they're actually researching it in this case. You can see that the spaceport is started. That is one of the original things that I think you should be doing. So while this is going on, I'm also going to start to talk about some of the stuff that's changed between Distant Worlds 1 and 2. This is actually pulled a lot, mostly from the Steam page. There was a news article on this, just to give you the source for this. And you should definitely wishlist this game. First of all, that gives positive feedback to developers that, hey, wow, we really like what you're doing. But not only that, you should. I mean, if you're not interested in this game, I don't know what you're doing this far into the video. Major improvements. So they've gone to 64-bit multi-threaded stuff, 3D-based engine. I think that the engine they're using is called. Oh, I looked it up, but I can't remember the name of it. It actually has the ability to do VR, but they're obviously not using it for that. They're using it for the 3D properties. So they moved to this. The performance issues, which used to happen at the end game, very kind of similar to the stuff we used to see in Aurora 4X. These things have all been improved upon. So there's, I think, an immense... Okay, there's the hyperspace technology discovered. We're going to continue to get him exploring the planets and then putting mining stations on them. So, a vast, immersive, and dramatic galactic environment rendered in 3D. Right, so this is obviously a huge change. A fully scalable and redesigned user interface. Look at the user interface was probably the #1 complaint from Distant Worlds 1. It's the one I saw the most. Like, oh, how do you change the scaling? Oh, I can't read the font, blah, blah, blah. So this is obviously, and this is the ship spaceport design. So it looks very, I mean, this, again, it looks very similar to Distant Worlds 1, and that is a good thing. I want to mention this. When I first saw the gameplay reveal back in December 2019, they gave us this little Christmas gift of showing us like a very brief clip of the game. And of course, the first thing that we saw was, oh, it's in 3D. I was actually a little bit nervous about that. Not that I didn't think that CodeForce was going to do an excellent job, because it's obviously an experienced development team, and they made Distant Worlds 1, so it's like, why not have faith in them? But the thing is, they can have a different design vision for the game, and there's their first hyperjump, which is cool. Might have even heard the sound for that. I have the sound cranked up as much as I can, so yeah, he's moving over a lot faster. Going to be able to explore things a lot more quickly. Yeah, anyways, I was a little nervous when I first saw the 3D, December 2019 reveal. Because I was thinking, if they're investing too much in the 3D, are we going to start missing out on something? Is the gameplay going to become an issue of late game if it's 3D? I mean, I was just, all these kind of things. Or are they focusing more on the aesthetics than they are on the gameplay? Are they going to change the gameplay loop, simplify it so that it fits more of this like gamey, like arcadey structure? No, it doesn't look like, from everything we can see from this video, none of that is true. So, I mean, my doubts have been pushed away. Anyway, so I'm really happy with what I'm seeing here so far. And I also should mention that what is my reaction to all that I've seen so far after the hour-and-a-half stream, after monitoring the Distant Worlds 2 forum. I have nothing but the most positive impression about the game as of right now, as of today, which is, by the way, the highest opinion that I've had of the game. I'm the most excited I am about the game right now. And I want to say that I'm not a person who gets hyped very easily. I intentionally kind of suppress my hype because I get very nervous about games, underachieving, which happens a lot. So this is probably the most excited about a release I have been in perhaps the last 5 or 10 years. That's incredible. But I really do feel like this game has the magic. So I'm really looking forward to get into it. Okay, so improved AI. Eric Ruten's on the stream. He talked a lot about how they've been building this game around trying to get a better AI. The AI as is already way better than the original Distant Worlds 1 AI. And I didn't ever think that the original AI was terrible. I mean, AI is the most difficult thing to do in any game, I think. So it's not surprising. Okay, so they also have an expanded resource system. Not really sure what that's going to be, but they say that now luxury goods aren't just for planets. They might even grant you special research technologies. It's interesting. More fine-grained exploration, so there'll be multiple tiers of research to discover things on planets. Galactic nebula clouds form difficult barriers giving natural geography to the galaxy. Ships navigate around these by default because hyperjump movement inside nebula clouds is much slower, and other damaging effects can occur. So this really sounds like the way they're trying to force people to use systems more. We'll see how this ends up creating choke points or not, and whether or not we really want to see that, or if it's a good thing or bad thing, whatever. Expanded influence over state funding choices, more options for automation, we don't care about that. More detailed damage model for space combat. That'll be interesting to see. Research now can be blind, we already saw that. Here's the Pirate Raiders, which is going to conclude this video. So, ship and base construction, just pause this here. Population policies can now be set for each species. Oh, one of the things I saw was in the diplomacy, there used to be, so empire reputation is going to be based on each empire instead of being based on a galactic modifier. Anyways, this is going to conclude this video. This is just to tease out what is available to us based on what we've seen in the gameplay footage revealed by Slitherine. I'm definitely looking forward to more videos to come. But until then, thanks for watching. If you don't mind pressing the like button or sharing with your friends, get them excited about Distant Worlds 2. And hopefully we'll all be playing this great game soon in 2021.